last time, I think.
Yep. Hi, and welcome to the Dingers podcast. This is episode 50. Joe, you're on for our episode 50. That's like a milestone here.
I feel very honored and privileged. Thank you, fellas.
So this is Mitch. I'm here with my boys, Jeff and Kevin, and we have Joe Kilgallon back on the show with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
This podcast is presented to you by ChiCitySports.com. If you're interested in all things Chicago sports, this is your place. Go check out all the forums, the podcasts, ChiCitySports.com. Well, let's start. Joe, we've started doing a Crack Our Beer Player of the Week. So we have our Players of the Week, and we're going to call on you to say who your Player of the Week is. So
Is this a prediction for the rest of the week? Or recapping previous week?
The previous week. Yep.
All right. Ooh, that's tough. I have beer upstairs, but I can't go upstairs, so I'm going to crack.
We'll leave it to the end. We'll let you
some water.
For a little bit.
I'm going to go with Anthony Rizzo. He had a nice weekend, and I'm rooting for him to have a really strong finish, regardless of what the future may hold. There's a few other bright spots. Brian had a decent weekend, and Baez too, but I'm going to go with Rizzo.
Nice. All right, Kevin, how about you?
So I'm going with Chirinos.
Chirinos.
He had a great weekend. Who knew that it took, 7, 8, 9 tries to get a backup catcher this season? But we'd knock it out of the park by kind of going back to the well. I mean, he's got a cool story. Signed out of Venezuela at 17. What did he do? Make it all the way up to Iowa? And then was traded.
It was with the Iowa Cubs.
Yeah,
and traded in Matt Garza deal with Chris Archer.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then won a World Series with Houston. Came back with the Cubs. Said he's been dreaming about being in Chicago, seeing the fans. Pretty cool story.
Yeah, he's been killing it so far. Yeah. Jeff, how about you, buddy?
I'm going with Trevor Williams with his start yesterday. He sprinkled 5 hits across 6.1 innings, which happened to be his longest outing of the season. No earned runs, no walks.
Yeah, he pitched a beaut of a game. Mine is Rafael Ortega. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite guys. Just playing a solid center field. I mean, this last week, he's batted over 400. He had 8 hits in 21 plate appearances. A ribby in there. Had a triple. He's doing great things out there. And I love it. They've moved him up into the starting leadoff a little bit. And I love that. So it's just, love to see some new guys, new faces, because we're going to be seeing a lot of them here eventually soon. So, man, how are you guys doing? Are you guys prepared for this week? Are your hearts okay to be broken this week?
I don't know. I've been had a weird week. Anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that. Don't need to get into that, though. Apologies were made. Cooler heads hopefully will prevail. But, we're going through – I feel like as Cubs fans, starting with that 11-game losing streak, we've kind of been going through the 5 stages of grief. And I keep circling back to anger, which I think is number 3 of the 5 stages. I'm kind of working towards acceptance, but I'm trying to distract myself with other things. Like Kevin, as you brought up Robinson Chirinos, I'm thinking, do we bring him back next year? Assuming Wilson Contreras is our number 1 catcher, I bring him back. Why not? He's a veteran. They're both countrymen. Adbert's from Venezuela. I figure, he's a solid backup. Why not? And then if he starts to struggle by mid-June, maybe Amaya's ready to take over that backup spot. So, sure. All right. Yeah. That's where I'm starting to do things like that, where Justin Steele threw 98 miles an hour today. This is awesome. That's what I'm trying to handle, or how to handle this, because we just don't know. And Friday can't come soon enough because, as Tom Petty famously said, the waiting is the hardest part.
I think I circled back to denial today for a little bit. No, this ain't happening. No, Jed is just playing us all, and he's going to surprise us on Friday with extensions for everybody. And he's even going to throw Contreras in there. I tried to tell myself that, but I don't know.
Dude, I don't know. I just kept thinking back to the years of Dale Swain and Rick Renteria, and it's, at least I can drink beer while I watch this train wreck. Whatever.
That's accurate. Oh.
Yeah. So I'm currently reading my son books, the Matt Christopher books. So I don't know if you're a Matt Christopher old Matt Christopher, and I'm reading him this book, Baseball Pals.
Nice.
And so it's a story of Jimmy and his best friend Paul, and they're on the same team together. And then over winter, Jimmy decides that he wants to be a starting pitcher. Now, Paul is the starting pitcher on their team. And Jimmy worked really, really hard, and he's the captain of the team. And they start up the next season, and he tells Paul, hey, Paul, you're going over to first base now. And Paul's like, I don't like this. And so he decides to switch teams. And like, while I'm reading this, my son's like, he can't do that. He can't just switch teams. It's like, well, you know who else is switching teams here pretty soon there, buddy? Rizzo, Baez. And like, he just lost it, like started crying. Like, he can't do that. They can't do that. It's like, yep, this is your first realization of business in baseball. It sucks, buddy.
How old's your son?
He's 7.
Okay, I'm wondering when I could start reading Matt Christopher books. I was a member of the fan club. The kid who only hit home runs was, a big one. And as much as I love Matt Christopher books, I don't know. Even at Little League, there's not a one-man rotation. I don't understand why they both couldn't be starting pitchers.
Right.
But it's tough with kids, I have a 4-year-old son. He loves the Beatles. Has no idea they're not still making music, and I dread the day. My wife one time, like in December, it was the 40th anniversary of John Lennon's assassination, and my wife was like, "How old was John Lennon when he died?" And my 4-year-old son's like, "John Lennon died?" And I'm looking at my wife like, "Shut the fuck up! What are you doing? I'm not ready for this conversation. He doesn't know John's dead." So yeah, man, 7's a little bit older. So yeah, that's still. I remember being 7 when. Or maybe I was 8 when Andre Dawson, it was last season with the Cubs. I think it was 92, and he was my guy. He was my Bryant, my Rizzo. And yeah, it's a harsh reality. That's a good thing about sports, though, is it really does teach you about how to overcome disappointment.
Yep. The Catcher with the Glass Arm is our next book, so you gotta dig into that one. But you've talked a lot on, and Joe is, if you know Joe Kilgallon, he's host of Locked on Cubs. So Locked on Cubs podcast, check him out. Great content every single day. I listen to it. I love listening to Joe talk. And so he's talked a lot about this week of us shifting our focus as Cubs fans. So help us with that. What do you mean by us having to shift our focus? Because I think we're going to have to do it here pretty quick.
Well, as Jeff alluded to a little bit earlier, to the Dale Swem, I can't even pronounce his last name anymore. Doesn't matter. And Rick Renteria, those 2012 to 2014 seasons, where, and I'm hoping that we're not going to do a rebuild anything close to that, because I think it's completely unnecessary. But what I mean by shifting our focuses as fans is this is the first season in a long time in which the months of August and September really have no implications on anything. And so to enjoy as a fan, because we don't want to be those fans that just goes, all right, well, I'm turning off the TV, wake me up in mid-February when pitchers and catchers report. We don't want to be those kind of fans. There's a label for those kind of fans. I'm not saying you have to, if they don't spend in the offseason, I might not spend next year. So I'm not saying you have to still give them your money and everything like that. But as a fan, you still follow your team through thick and thin. You can't just show up when they're winning. I'm strongly against that. And I've been criticized for that from some people who are idiots. But what I mean is, I mentioned Justin Steele. He will probably be in the rotation come, a week or two from now. You look for that. You look for his growth, because if he's pitching phenomenally the last 2 months, or even enough where you're like, hey, this guy has a future in the rotation, that's something in the offseason you could scratch off the list. Okay, now we need one less starter. Things like that. You root for like individual storylines. Kyle Hendricks, as we all know, is criminally underrated. He's pitching a little shaky right now, but still has been underrated most of his career. Never made an all-star game. He's got a shot at 20 wins. Now, I'm not the biggest proponent of the win-loss measurement for pitchers, because as we've seen, it's kind of a BS statistic, really. I'm with you, Kevin, 100%. Yep. But it's still one of those things where most of the time a guy wins 20 games, it means he had a pretty good year. Unless you're like Russ Ortiz for the 2003 Braves, where you won 21 games, but your ERA was 4.5. For the most part, it's still cool. So you root for something like that. You check out guys like Robinson Chirinos and Rafael Ortega. You look for like the little storylines and the development of people. Like Nico Horner, I'm loving his stick. I'd like to see a few extra base hits, though, right, Nico? We don't want to just see nothing but singles. So you just kind of look for things along those lines to root for as a fan.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question. You talked about Hendricks a little bit. Down the stretch, do you think we should maybe save some bullets in his arm. I know he doesn't throw extremely hard, but down the stretch, if he doesn't have 20 games as an option to win, would you like to see them maybe skip a start and throw in Keegan Thompson into skip a spot in his rotation, see Keegan Thompson could get a start?
Yes, 100%. I think Keegan Thompson should probably be getting a look at the rotation regardless. Zach Davies, I got to imagine, is going to be moved. Even if they can't get anything for him, I think they'll just throw him into a deal. I don't, or they just, I don't see the point in keeping Zach Davies every fifth day. He's a solid enough pitcher, but he's just not in our future plan. So why bother? I would like to see Justin Steele and Keegan Thompson. As much as I like what Alec Mills has brought to the table, let me think. Well, you know what though? Adbert, I love Adbert, but you're probably going to shut him down because this is the most innings he's ever pitched anyway. This isn't a negative. This isn't like get Adbert out of there, because he had a shaky start to his last outing against St. Louis, but then turned it around and gave you 7 innings of 3 earned runs. So you'll take that every time out. I think, you give him a couple more starts and maybe by mid-August you sit Adbert for the season, and then you get a look at Keegan Thompson. Justin Steele definitely, I mean, they've been stretching Steele out for 4 or 5 starts now in Iowa, so it's time for him. I imagine after the trade deadline, Justin Steele slides in for Zach Davies.
Yep. And we had Justin Steele on last week on our podcast, so go check that out. It was a great interview, and he's ready. He was demanding that PD bump him up to 70 pitches. I think he was at 85.
Yeah.
I think he got pretty high the last outing. So, yeah, and I think he was pitching. Was he pitching today?
Yeah, he hit 98.
Yes. Yep.
Ooh. What inning?
I think the fourth he was hitting 98.
Yeah, it was later in this.
It's easy, too. It doesn't look like he's overexerting himself with his mechanics or anything like that. A lot of upside with Justin Steele. Some of these guys, pitchers are strange. As we all know, they figured out a little bit later. I like to remind baseball fans, Jacob deGrom was a rookie at 26. So it's not like he was just lighting the world on fire at 21, 22. So Justin Steele at 25 is, it's not like he's all that far off. It's not like he's someone where we're like, he should have been up 2 years ago. No, he's at a nice pace in his development.
Yeah. Some other guys that I kind of want to that we need to kind of shift our focus on is we need to focus on, I think, Bodie and Wisdom. What do we have in these guys? They're very similar style, very similar batters. I know Wisdom's now been moved out to the outfield a little bit. He can be a little bit more versatile, but we need to figure out what we got in these guys. We have Bodie to a contract that has a couple of more years on it. But are they going to be a role player? Is he going to be a bench guy? Like you talked about Bodie today on your podcast of he's a great man on your roster that doesn't start, that can come in, pinch hit, can fill a need when somebody gets hurt. What do we have in Wisdom? We need to answer those questions. So they need to be playing every day. Hap's another one. We need to figure out what we have in Hap. He needs to figure
Agreed.
out where's his stick at. He needs to kind of figure it out. He has a lot of things. You've talked about his long swing. That's the biggest issue that I've had with him from day one is he has a big hole in his swing, and he shortened it up a little bit last year towards the end of 2019, but it's just a long swing. What do we have in him? But you talked about pitching. We need to figure out what we have with our pitching, with our future. Who do you think we should kind of build around or even possibly go get in the future for our free agents out there to be for building a pitching staff down the road?
Oh, as far as building a pitching staff, that's interesting because there's a lot of offensive players that I have in mind. That's what you look forward to, because in August and September, you're going to get a look at Justin Steele and Keegan Thompson, because if those two look like solid major league arms that you feel confident putting in your 2022 rotation, along with Hendricks and Adbert, because right now I think Hendricks and Adbert are the two definite lock for your 2022 rotation.
Yep.
We all know Hendricks pitches at a number 2, number 1. I think Adbert's got the stuff of a high-end pitcher, and he put together a nice little stretch of 7 or 8 starts there from May through June before he had the finger thing, and then he came back and looked real shaky before his last start, but the stuff plays. So with Adbert, I want him to I mentioned this on my podcast as well, don't worry about what the numbers are. Look at the process. Because his next outing, I want him throwing nothing but changeups to lefties inside. I want him working on stuff. It's almost like spring training. Sometimes really good pitchers will give up 8 runs and like a spring training start, and everyone's like, what happened? And then the pitcher's like, oh, I was just working on a pitch. I only threw fastballs for the whole game just because I wanted to see if I could get some run on it.
Time.
Yeah, I want to see stuff like that, because if we lose games, we're only helping our draft spot for next year, right? I mean, there's no glory in winning 82 games. It's cool. Oh, we had another winning season, but if we're gonna have like a quick 2016 Yankees style turnaround, which is what the Cubs should be doing, and it annoys me when fans think, oh, it's impossible. I'm like, the Yankees traded a bunch of guys in 2016, Chapman, Miller, and then in 2017 they were in the ALCS. So I don't understand why we can't do the same thing. As far as on the market goes, free agent wise, Max Scherzer is still pitching at an elite level, and I know he's 37 years old, which is why I would like him, because you only have to give him like 2 or 3 years. You could say, hey, Max, everyone should play in Wrigley Field before they retire. These fans will worship you. You've won a ring. You've won the Cy Youngs. You're Hall of Fame bound. Come on out to Wrigley. We'll get here. We're offering you a fair deal, as fair as anyone else. You can mentor some of our younger guys. We're still going to try to compete. I think that's a nice little pitch right there. I'd go get Max Scherzer, because anyone else is going to want 5 or 6 years, and you might be a little reluctant because you still want to see what you've got. Braylon Marquez was unfortunately sidelined at the beginning of the year with COVID. Then he had like a little forearm strain, I think. They're not too worried, but they're also like, why rush this guy in a season in which we're not competing? He's 21, and if you throw 101, as long as you have control, we're going to bring you up. It's not like with hitters where you want them to get X amount of at-bats. You know, Braylon Marquez could start next year in AAA Iowa, have 2 dominant starts, and then they're like, come on up. You know, it's that quick. So I think really just one premier free agent starter to go along with Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson, hopefully, Adbert, Hendricks. And then maybe you sign like another Trevor Williams type fringe guy who has high upside but is low cost.
Yeah. The other free agents that I think I would look at would maybe be Kevin Gossman. He's been pitching lights
Stroman
out.
too.
Stroman's out there. A lot of people like Syndergaard. I don't like. He's just been injury riddled a lot. I don't want that. So those are just some names that like. And I'm with you. One. You have enough guys in your system already. It's kind of like getting that John Lester, getting one guy and then kind of building around him. Like I think they need to do, and they already kind of have that with Hendricks if they do keep him. Hopefully they don't trade him.
Right.
They won't, though. Jed Hoyer announced today that he's not shopping Hendricks. He goes, and on MLB Trade Rumors, at least, they said that the Cubs would have to be absolutely wowed to move Hendricks, because as Cubs fans forget, we have an option on him. So it's really 3 more seasons, not 2 with Hendricks.
Okay. MLB Trade Rumors. I used to use that a ton, and then it got really crappy.
It's terrible now. I don't know what happened to it. I agree with you. I still check it because it takes 3 seconds to look at it, but it used to be such a good site.
Yeah. In 2023, we could re-sign Darvish if that's an option down the road. If that's our next go for it, win a World Series. He's a free agent in 2023, so just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be funny?
Just as long as whoever we sign, we don't give them a bunch of money and they can't throw it over to first base. You know, I want to be able to make that throw.
Yeah.
Pay them $155 million, they got to throw it to first base.
Let's do one out bounce. That we'll take that.
I don't know. My favorite from him was when the ball got stuck in his glove and he just tossed the whole glove. That should have just been his everyday. He just got it deep in the pocket and just tossed the whole thing.
And Rizzo was smart enough to drop his glove, because I think you can't catch another person's glove with your own. There's some weird thing like that. So he had to drop his glove in order to catch Lester's. There's some goofy rule.
Strange rules of baseball.
Now, you've talked a lot about being a counselor for Cubs Twitter and Cubs fans. Could you, on the spot, do a little bit of a counseling session for us and give us a little bit of a pep talk going into this week?
Well, I feel very musical today. I already quoted Tom Petty. I'll quote Noel Gallagher of the band Oasis. Don't look back in anger. You know, I feel like a lot of Cubs fans are really angry right now because they're seeing people who are on their walls, like you see behind me right now, and you got some great stuff on your wall too there, Mitch. And they're upset. I'm seeing people turn to Anthony Rizzo's terrible. He should have taken that offer. He sucks now. And I'm like, hey, this is still the man that provided you with all that World Series memorabilia. So again, like I know it's an old cliche, but don't be sad it's over. Be happy it happened. We're still going to be Cubs fans no matter what. We're always going to look back fondly on this run. Our fathers all talk about this 1960s Cubs like they were the Beatles. There's another Beatles reference. I'm full of music references today, and yet they
Nice.
won nothing. They didn't make a playoffs. They didn't make anything. Back then it was a little different. You won and then you were in the World Series. But this, I'm telling you, 10 years from now, or imagine in 2026 if they do like a 10-year reunion, those are gonna be the hottest tickets in town. If they do a 10-year reunion or celebration of the 2016 team, everyone's going to be going nuts for. I know in 2020 the Blackhawks did it with the 2010 Cup. We're upset right now, and again, rightfully so. We feel like we were cheated a little bit. We feel like there's no reason to end this. But again, let's enjoy what we've had. Let's try to be positive about it because you're not taking the posters off your wall. You still love these players at the end of the day, and I think a lot of them are probably upset because, like us, they want to be here too. I really feel like Rizzo's whole season he went into this year with a black cloud over his head, thinking, what do I have to do for this organization to get an extension that I feel is fair? Because the one they offered him, I know fans are saying, oh, it looks pretty fair now. Yeah, because he played his way into it. But really, it was a pay cut. He's making $16 million this year. It was a 5-year, $14 million extension, 5 years, $70. Anyone here at your job that you did everything for, imagine you work for a company that you've done everything for. He gave the game-winning ball to Ricketts. Did not need to do that. The final out, he could have auctioned that off for his charity. No fan would have batted an eye at that. You think any fan would have been like, he should have given that ball to Ricketts? No, they wouldn't have. He could have done anything he wanted with that. He gave it to the owner. And I think by slapping him in the face, future free agents might be like, wow, do I want to sign a long-term deal with that team? What kind of loyalty they got there? Who knows? Maybe we'd say to Brendan Davis, hey, we want to sign you to an Eloy Jimenez-like extension like the Sox did over there. And he might be like, nah, I'm going to play it out. You guys don't really show a lot of loyalty. Happy to be here. I'm not saying he's going to say that, but I'm saying it's a dangerous game you're playing when you don't respect the people. I know you pay for future performance and don't pay for past performance, which is a Theo-ism that Theo haters now use all the time, which I find hilarious. But I definitely just think that you're not going to regret paying Anthony Rizzo too much money in year 35 when his back is totally shot. You're just not. You're going to be like, it was worth it. It's Rizzo. We love him. He's done everything for this organization. And again, we're supposed to be a major market team, and we've all been brainwashed into thinking one bad contract derails us. The San Diego Padres have several bad contracts. I guess only 2, Hosmer and Will Myers, but it didn't stop them from adding. And they're over the luxury tax now. So anyway, I'm sorry. I go on these rants about that. I started by trying to be positive, and then I got mad. It's hard for me either.
Yeah,
I'm in the cycle again.
You're in the cycle. I think for me, I was like thinking about it today, and I was like, as a Cub fan, I don't think I've experienced having to lose one of my favorite players still kind of in their prime. When I look back at like all the players I've been, like Sean Dunston, the Cubs held on to him, and then he kind of started sucking, and then they let him go. Mark Grace, I mean, yeah, he can go to the Arizona Diamondbacks when he's old and can barely move and do anything. Like Andre Dawson later in his prime. Ryan Sandberg played till like the only one, maybe Kerry Wood. Like I love Kerry Wood, but then he got hurt with injuries, and so like all these players, Sammy Sosa, like towards the end, we were ready to say goodbye, but now we want him back. And so it's like all the Cubs players that I've loved for so long throughout my time watching the Cubs, I've never had to like say goodbye to somebody that I've loved and that are still at the top of their game that could still help us down the road. And I think that's a tough thing for us as Cubs fans that we have to kind of wrestle with. Of like, and even like if you're a fan of the Bulls, like, yeah, we didn't have to do that because they're end of their career, and we all knew that was the last dance. So like, it's really hard for us, I think, as Cubs fans, that's why we're in that cycle.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen anything like this in sports. Now that I think of it, where a team's 3 best players, arguably, I guess you could put Contreras ahead of one or two of these guys, perhaps, but their 3 best offensive players are all free agents at the same time. I can't recall anything like this. And I know a global pandemic last year really threw a stick in our bicycle, but like it still seems like there was a lot that went wrong. And also the Cubs won a World Series at such a young age. All of our players were 23, 24, 25. That's something that fans forget too when people say, how come they didn't get these extensions done sooner? I think every athlete has 2 dreams: winning a championship and getting paid. Once they all won the championship, they were like, you got to pay me now. That's why Javi turns down $180 million after 2018. That's why, I kind of think that's what was going on. And I don't really blame them for that. And I feel like I can understand Cubs management and front office and ownership being like, well, this is what the price we have set, take it or leave it. But then again, I feel like at a certain point, you got to reward. I know you pay for future performance, like I said before, but you also have to reward loyalty, and you have to reward the guys who do great things for your organization as an incentive to future players to come on over and sign with you.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. I feel like he needs to shit or get off the pot and at least sign one of them to an extension. Like whatever one you're not going to trade, you need to treat decently, with a decent extension to kind of heal that, all the snubbing that's been going on lately with the extensions that they've offered the players. But so with the 4.5 days left to this trade deadline, do you think you play out the scene from Moneyball like Brad Pitt did with trading Rancone, where you kind of you play off two GMs and try to sweeten the deal?
I hope so. I always love that scene. I imagine every GM's trying to do something like that, don't you? I know the big rumor for a couple weeks ago was the Cubs trying to play the Astros off the A's for Kimbrel. I don't really love too many players in their top of their prospects. Maybe you get quantity over quality or something like that. Although the Astros, I think their top prospect, who might be like number 60 on baseball's America's Top 100, he is a AAA pitcher. So you get a guy like that for Kimbrel who could slot into the rotation in 2022. That's not. I like something like that. That'd be nice. So yeah, if you could play off some of these teams, see what teams are desperate. I'm not opposed to packaging a few of these guys. You package a Bryant and a Kimbrel, or Kimbrel and Chafin together, or whatever. I feel like after the big three, fans are going to be the saddest about Chafin leaving.
Right?
Be a fun guy with a goofy mustache, and you are set in this town. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's something I think is getting missed. We enjoyed it a month or two ago. We had some really cool personalities on the team. You had Chafin. You had, what was it, Justin Steele? No, Chafin was, excuse me, Chafin was Father's Day. Justin Steele was mic'd up running around on the outfield trying to field balls and just talking with guys. And, there are some cool guys on our team that are fun to talk to, fun to listen to. And I'm going to miss Chafin when he goes. I kind of assume he will end up gone, but I would much prefer to see him stay.
We do have an option on him.
Yeah, that's one of those. He would be nice to have in your back pocket for your bullpen for another year, just to have another solid piece kind of to go along with Hendricks in the rotation. I don't know. That's where my head's at. I'm just sitting here I know when Javi's one of my favorites. I know when he goes, that's going to be a rough day because he's also my 9-year-old son's favorite. And he's gonna have a rough time of it.
Yeah, it's really a shame because we saw what this offense can be. In the month of May, they were second in baseball and offense, I want to say. Yeah. And that's because they had the right type of bat supplemented around. Mitch, I don't know if you heard the crazy analogy I did on today's podcast, but I basically said a great batting order is like the ingredients to a great meal.
Pizza.
Where, your Matt Duffy might not be like some killer ingredient or one of the main ingredients, but if you take him out, that meal doesn't taste as good. You need everything working together. And so I really feel like when Duffy and Nico were in the lineup every day from May 1st through, a little bit into June, the offense looked great and Javi looked better. And because the pitchers had to change their style per hitter, where it was Ian Happ's up. Who's next? Javi Baez. Who's next? Wilson Contreras. All three of these guys strike out at an alarmingly high rate. I'll just throw them junk out of the zone. Even if they work the count, I'm not afraid of them. And when you had a Matt Duffy there, the pitcher's I can't throw him 4 sliders in the other batter's box. He's going to take a walk. I have to work him in a little bit. Then when Javi comes up, all of a sudden that pitch I'm trying to get outside after working the previous batter isn't in. Or isn't outside enough. And then Javi hits the ball to right center field for a home run. See, all those things, it's like a domino effect to all of this. That's why every now and then when fans say, we need 5 good hitters, I'm like, no, you need 2 or 3 of the right hitter. You never need, everyone always acts like you need a whole makeover. I've seen teams add 1 or 2 guys and their offense looks completely different. there really is no reason the Cubs couldn't bring back all three of these guys. But then you just have to be a big league franchise and say, hey, Jason Hayward, thanks for the speech. We love you, but it's time for you to be a bench player, and we're going to go out and get a right fielder who could consistently hit for contact. That's what, look at Jed will trade Ricketts' family. Heard it here first. That's funny. I like that guy too. But look at it this way, though, too. With as far as like balancing or being a big market team, Jacoby Ellsbury is still getting paid like $30 million by the Yankees. He's at home. The Dodgers gladly said to David Price, we'll have you in the bullpen. He's making $31 million. Like, big market teams have no problem being like, all right, you're just not good. It's a sunken cost regardless. This idea that you have to play Jason Hayward because he's getting paid high is wrong. You don't. So I look at this Cubs offense and I think to myself, all right, because even in 2019, all the big four, even Schwarber, the big five, they had good individual seasons, but it just didn't work as a unit. They're like one of those super bands that you're like, I don't get it. It's a good bassist, a good guitarist, a great drummer, but together they just don't sound right. You know what I mean? There's no soul or whatever you want to say to it. If they could bring those guys back, but they would definitely have to reconfigure everything around them, where you need that consistently guys. There's just too many strikeouts, too many times there's a runner at third with nobody out and the side gets struck out because you got three of the same hitter profile, with the exception of Rizzo. And now Nico when he's back, in Duffy, of course, too. But I mean, as far as the big four goes, a lot of strikeouts.
Yeah, that's where it's going to be really interesting the second half of this season to kind of watch how Ross manages this team, because he's wanting to figure out what does he have in this future of how he's going to set these lineups up. How is he going to try to set Hap up for more success? Like, it's just going to be interesting to see, because he's playing for his job down the road. He wants to keep it for more years. He wants to bring another championship. So it's going to be interesting to see how he manages this team going forward. If he's down a Rizzo or if he's down a Bryant, what he's going to go about making these lineups and making these decisions that will help bring back a championship. When we talked about the 3D chess that Jed maybe needs to play to be able to bring a top guy back, the team that I want them to play off of each other, I want the Padres and Giants. I want him to play them two off of each other. In the West, they have three teams fighting for basically two spots. And so two of those teams are going to have to fight it out. And why not fight it out? Because we have guys that can bring you a championship. We have the best offer of anybody in baseball. And it's not just hitting, it's pitching too. It's bullpen, which everybody needs to win a championship. And it's like, if you want to take Bryant and Kimbrel, I would play the Giants off the Padres and try to get the Padres to let go of Mackenzie Gore. I mean, if they were to Gore, number 6 overall prospect, left-handed pitcher, throw him in there with Marquez down the road, two lefties that throw hard. I mean, that's an offer. If you could play them off of each other enough, Giants over here are offering me this. Are you gonna spot this, or are you gonna try to overdo this one there?
And then Jonah Hill is fist pumping, right?
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. Do you care if I break a little news? Apparently, this just got reported to my phone. The Oakland A's are closing in on a deal to acquire left-hander Andrew Chafin from the Chicago Cubs, reports Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. Throwing that out there. But I like your idea with the Giants and Padres, two teams who are probably very desperate to take out the Dodgers, who have ruled the West for what? Since 2013? Since before Friedman was there. That's the Andrew Friedman, who's great at his job, by the way. Although he's clearly made a mistake with Trevor Bauer. He inherited a team that won 96 games. I always tell people, I'm like, he didn't come into the same situation Theo came into. The Dodgers already had Bellinger and Seager in their farm system, and they had Kershaw and Jansen, and they had a top-ranked farm system and won 95 games. They were smart enough to continue that by bringing in Friedman, who's great at his job. But if I could go back to Rossi real quick, I feel for the guy because I think he's done a really good job considering. Think about it. His first season as a big league manager is a 60-game pandemic year, which I know all the teams went through the pandemic, of course, but that's still a weird situation without prior managerial experience. Yeah. I think I look back at that year and I can't wait until players write books about it eventually, where they're like, yeah, it was 60 games. And a lot of years when you have a slump, I mean, even Mike Trout goes through a 1 for 25 every season. And they'll tell you, yeah, I go to the strip club. I'll I'll hit the casino, when I'm having a slump like that. I'll do some things to take my mind off of it. But in 2020,
chicken?
nothing was open. So like I was just bored playing Nintendo 64 in my hotel. So, that's why I think a lot of great hitters had really bad 2020s. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, Yelich, Pete Alonso, or an Arenado, the list goes on. And then you have Ross's second year in which ownership basically gives up before the season starts by trading away your ace. And he's got all these guys on 1-year contracts, so he's got to manage the emotions that go into that. I really think he's done a better job than people have given him credit for. The way this team started in April, it would have been really easy for them to have just rolled over and died, but he got them back to playing great baseball in May, and not just against bad teams. They swept the Dodgers, the Padres, the Mets, So I'm really interested to see what a team that he kind of helps helm or help configure maybe. Maybe they'll have him in on some meetings where it's like, what do you think about this and that? And he could really put his stamp on it instead of just trying to turn around Joe Madden's team.
Yep. Yeah, I think he's managed the team. And I think it's so tough as situations. And you have a lot of big personalities in this team that are dealing with a lot of stressful things that don't just involve baseball, involve their families, involve their future. And these guys are kind of left in the dark. And I point it more at Ricketts of like, hey, like, you're making this a lot harder on your coach, your manager, the guy who you're kind of trying to set up for success, and you're putting him in a tough situation of having all the players not know what's going on and just left in the dark. And that's the tough thing with all of this. And I think Ross has kind of managed, even when there's been flare-ups of emotions and Contreras saying some things maybe he should have said behind closed doors, but he's still, like, you can see probably he's working some magic behind the scenes of still keeping the guys together. And so that's even like yesterday, you saw Contreras giving Rizzo a hug in the dugout. And I'm glad the camera caught that. It's like, yeah, these guys still love each other. These guys still, like, they're brothers. They fight, but they're still going to go to battle and play hard. And they are playing hard, despite what Cubs Twitter or Cubs Facebook is saying. These guys are still playing hard. They want to win. They're playing for their next contract, so they want to do well.
Yeah, they're definitely playing for their next contract, so of course they want to play well. If they look defeated at times, it's because they're putting so much energy and effort out there. If they didn't care, I don't think they would even look defeated. They would just be like blowing bubbles, being like, all right, and trot back to the dugout. But you could tell, I mean, you've seen it when they hit ground ball double plays. They've got a look on their face like, come on, and then they sprint hard out of the box. It's just, they're getting paid 7 figures, of course, so we're not supposed to feel bad for them, but that's the world they live in. I remember one time saying to someone, I was complaining about something, and I said, first world problems. And they go, well, yeah, that's the world you live in. Don't feel bad for having problems in the world you live in. If you lived in the third world, you'd have third world problems. If you lived in, is there a second world? I don't even know. But everyone's got their problems. They just, regardless of the money, they still have this mental weight on their shoulders of wanting to succeed. It's even worse now because when you have a bad game, the whole country knows about it. It used to be if you had a bad game in 1965, unless you lived in that town. I don't think there was no Chicago Tribune being delivered to folks in Phoenix, so they could be like, can you believe this, honey? Look what's happening all over the sports page.
Yeah. It's a completely different world. Hell, people know about it like 3-4 seconds after it happens.
Yeah.
Video clip, like thumbnail on Twitter.
What was
misconstrued.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
Isn't the guy who played first base for Pittsburgh and Javi's magical play, isn't he like overseas now?
Yes, and not only that,
destroyed his soul.
Yeah. He literally said when they go, oh, you're signing with Korea, and he goes, yeah, I need to get out of the country. He literally did. I applaud his honesty. He goes, yeah, I'm not living that play down for a while, so I'm going to go learn another language and get the heck out of Dodge because, I'm not going home for Christmas now, clearly. I couldn't believe how honest he was. I thought he was going to be like, they offered me a nice deal, and it's a competitive offer. A lot of hitters have gone over there, torn it up, and come back. He basically was like, I don't want to see that highlight for a long time. It's been incredible. That's what the internet does to people. They make them unroot their entire lives, go to another country. He could have latched down with another team. He was a decent enough player. Someone would have been like, "Sure, go play in AAA for us for a little bit. You'll figure it out." He was like, "Nope, going to Korea."
Can only imagine that conversation with his girlfriend or wife. It's like, "Yep, sorry."
She left him already. Actually, you saw the highlight. She's gone, man.
Nope.
Yikes. Yikes.
Well, around baseball, we've had some trades. The Padres just picked up, blanking on his name.
Adam Frazier.
Frazier, second base. So they're going for it. Like, that's where it's like you see, like, the Padres are kind of doing what the Dodgers do, and they're adding every single year. They have a great team, and they're going for it. And it's now time to kind of step back. And it's for us as Cubs fans, we're not adding, and now we have to kind of look at it from a different perspective. And we have to kind of go back to what it felt like in 2013 or 14, 15, when we were kind of trading and making some deals. And we were just hoping to get that Jake Arrieta type player back that we can kind of turn around. What other big teams and big trades do you think will go down in Major League Baseball? Can you kind of predict what you kind of see?
I think Trevor Story gets moved. I'm not sure where, though. I wish I had a cool, sexy little answer for you. Maybe the south side of town. Hope not, though. I don't want anybody helping them. I'll go out and say it. I'm one of those Cubs fans that people hate because I don't automatically think, well, if it's not the Cubs, why not them? We're in the same city. No, I don't care. City ends in Madison as far as I'm concerned. Don't cut that for everyone watching. Come on, it's a joke. Outside. Got a lot of friends down there.
That clip is getting cut. And
it's already out there. It already is.
Sorry.
No, I think, the Brewers, I feel like I don't think they're going to add Story. They don't need a middle infielder, but I feel like the Brewers are probably going to add a bat. I don't know which one. I don't want to see Javi go for Kevin's sake and Kevin's son's sake, because that makes me sad hearing that he might lose his favorite player. You don't want to see a little kid deal with that, but I could definitely say, I feel everyone keeps talking Bryant to the Mets. I think the Mets are going to go for Javi because him and Lindor. If Lindor comes back healthy soon, which I read recently, that's what they expect. The two of those guys up the middle. And they're best friends. They get along great. They've known each other for years, for a long time. I think since they were teens. I could see that happening. I don't want it to, of course, because I don't like the Mets either. But as far as other big splashes go, let's see. The Nationals are in a weird spot too. They really were, because they were looking like maybe they're going to add. Then poor Schwarber, who we all love to death, I'm assuming. Guy goes, he's player of the month in June, named an all-star.
On a tear.
Crushing the ball. And then on a single to the gap, he takes a wide turn around first and just leg goes down, hamstring. And there's been so many hamstring injuries this year that it's there needs to be an investigation, I think. I don't know what's going on. And then Trey Turner was banged up a little bit, and then now they're looking like they might be sellers. And Max Scherzer today announced that he would waive his no trade. So I don't know who would spring for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were the Dodgers, as much as I would hate to see it. Because with Dodgers, there's reports saying that the Dodgers clubhouse doesn't even want Bauer back. And they've got a couple other guys a little bit banged up. I would definitely see them going, you know what? We've got the prospect capital. We'll go for Max Scherzer, which I don't want to see, because right now the Dodgers look incredibly beatable to me. If they go into the playoffs with this roster, I don't see them getting out of the first round.
And their bullpen has been shaky.
Yes, trash. But yeah, the one thing I love about baseball is it's been a new winner every year. So I'm hoping the same. So I don't want anything making the Dodgers better. So I hope he doesn't go there. I hope the Padres, you want the Padres and Giants playing off each other. I hope they play the Dodgers out of some hands too.
Yeah, you've talked a lot. The same thing that we've said is we don't want this to be a rebuild, and we want that kind of window and that's the whole goal with everything. We want franchises that continue to be in the playoffs. Just get a seat at the table, see if you can make a run and win it all. And it may seem like that window is closing on the Cubs, but I don't think it's all the way shut. And I think that if we make one or two moves, even this offseason, that window is still a little bit open that we could still make a run. When do you think is the next where that window is fully open and we're making a go for it for the World Series again?
Well, I think they could be competitive in 2022 without even breaking the bank because there's just so little money committed that if they're smart about it, they don't have to. Brendan Davis will be the center fielder by June 1st is my prediction. He is absolutely on fire. And we're talking about Ian Happ having that super long swing. Brendan Davis's swing is so smooth, and he's got tremendous opposite field power. I don't see a swing that looks too long to me at all. It looks real tight, real fluid. I'm liking a lot. His strikeouts were up a little bit, but he was not known for being a high strikeout guy. I think he was just hitting for a lot of pop, and the strikeouts were just kind of coming up. And also we forget that Double-A is usually where a lot of the true talent is as far as minor league talent goes. I think I read that he was the third best hitter in Double-A right now. And the other two guys are like 2 years older than him each, something like that. So Brendan Davis is going to be going into next season. He'll be a consensus top 10 prospect. He's already up to like number 17 by Fangraphs. That's only going to grow higher and higher. He could easily be in the top 10, that's a building block right there. And then you couple that with Nico, you got two cheap options in your everyday lineup right there. We got Contreras for another year. I think extending him doesn't even break the bank. There's a lot to play with. I think we're in a much better position than we think. A lot of people think if we're not going to extend the big three, long rebuild. I'm like, well, how about option C? We just take the money we would have given the big three and we give it to like a Carlos Correa who's only 26 and having a phenomenal year. You're talking about the exact bat the Cubs need. I know he's had a couple injury stints in his past, but again, he's a young ball player. I know the Astros cheating thing that kind of rubs people the wrong way. He strikes out 17% of the time, walks 13% of the time. This is that's Ben Zobrist numbers right there. That's the type of bat we need. But as far as like how big the window could be, I think 2023, you're going to see like the start of the next like core of players, whether that's a makeshift model of like a Contreras, a Brendan Davis, and Nico all together. Because I think Nico was on track to be an all-star at second base before he got injured. I know he's still got aspects he needs to work on, but again, he's 23, maybe 24 now. And I think a big full-on window will open up again starting in 2023. They'll have a nice draft pick in 2022. I really love the draft class they just had. I think they'll get some nice pieces back in some of these moves. And then if they spend how they've spent from starting in 2015 through 2018, then I think they'll be the cream of the crop again.
Yeah, I mean, and they have a ton of infielders like Christopher Morale. He's with Brandon Davis down and Tennessee. Them two have both been kind of on a tear lately, and I think Morale's kind of credited Davis of coming in and kind of helping him in his swing and kind of just taking a professional approach at that. I think that's what kind of set Davis apart is that year last year at the alt site. Like even talking to Steele last week, he talked a lot about how much Brennan grew last year being at the alt site. And I mean, it was a year off and they didn't have any competitive games, but him being able to see professional pitchers, guys that have been in the show, that's a huge difference maker for him. And that window is not going to go closed. And I think that's what Cubs fans need to hear is we need to kind of look at maybe the rest of this year. It's going to be tough, but starting next year, let's get back, be positive and think we are playoff bound. We can make the playoffs. And that's what the kind of approach that we need to kind of go about it.
And then you got guys like Christian Hernandez and Ed Howard. Ed Howard, after a rough start, he didn't have a senior season of high school baseball. So, he had a little bit of a rough start, but he's been really hitting the ball real well lately. And then the couple of the guys, I don't know the reports on all four, but Owen Casey and the other guy, I forget his name, Reginald something maybe, they got from the Yu Darvish trade are absolutely tearing the ball up. Yes. I've heard great reports from both Owen Casey and him recently. And so a lot of the really good young offensive talent is really young right now, 17, 18, 19. So, they're a bit of ways away besides Davis and Amaya, who are basically knocking on the door. And Morel, like you said. Cole Roeder was a guy that a lot of people had high praise for, but then he just had surgery. If he makes it, if Roeder makes it, that 2018 draft is going to look spectacular.
Yeah.
Nico Horner first round, Brennan Davis second round, and Cole Roeder third round. All three of those guys on the show. I mean, that doesn't happen often where your top three picks all make it to the bigs. So yeah, that's something to look forward to.
I know a lot of people were really ticked at us getting a whole bunch of teenagers in the Darvish draft, but I don't know. I was watching the Olympics today, and there was some 13-year-old skateboarder that won a gold medal. So I mean, if they can,
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Why
I think, Joe, you brought it up a little bit ago. Position players don't take as long to develop. Like, yeah, we made fun of the Darvish trade for being all about teenagers, but that means they're maybe 3-4 years away from really knocking on the door. It's not that far off.
Yeah, it really isn't. And you look at Gleyber Torres, when we traded him in 2016, he was 18 years old. And in 2018, I'm pretty sure he made the All-Star team with the Yankees. That was 2 years later at the age of 20 or so. But not everyone has that path, and Gleyber Torres has not looked very good the last 2 years, so who knows? But again, it's not as far away. I remember when we got the 4 teenagers, thinking to myself, that seems strange. But then Jed Hoyer even said, some of these prospects might not even make the team because we'll use them to get other players. Mm-hmm. I think one of the mistakes the Cubs had made, and I understood why it was the makeup of the team where it's like, who do you trade? And whenever you thought maybe this is the player to trade, they had an off year. I remember some Cubs fans saying like, well, after 2018, they should have traded Bryant. Or when his value was the lowest because he had an injury-plagued season. Or what about and any fan who says that maybe you guys are one of them. I don't know, and I apologize if that's the case. But every now and then there are fans who are like, they should have traded Schwarber after the World Series. Really? You're going to trade a guy who had 412 in the World Series? Come on. Yeah, that's hindsight.
You wouldn't have heard that here. You wouldn't have heard that here.
Yeah, because I don't know. But my point is that what I liked about what some teams like the Dodgers and Red Sox have done in the past, and there's been other examples of this course, of course, but they just pop out in my head, is that, or the Astros too, they don't go into the season with a perfect roster. You go in and then you think to yourself, all right, if we're in first place or second place in July, then we make that deal. The Dodgers, I remember going into 2017 and 2018 thinking, oh, they got some holes. But then in 2017, they traded for Darvish. In 2018, they traded for Machado. The Cubs never, because Castellanos, by the way, who ended up being amazing for us, he wasn't some big market guy. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that was some, and yeah, Cole Hamels was good when we made the deal for him, but he also wasn't a big guy. He wasn't the Cole Hamels of 4 years earlier when we got him. No. The last big splash trade we made was Chapman at the deadline to push us over. And I love the Castellanos deal, but again, he was a guy who had 12 home runs and was hitting 275 for the Tigers. It wasn't like this guy was some world beater like Machado and Yu Darvish were at the time. So I think that's a smart approach too. I remind Cubs fans, I go, I would do this, and this in the offseason. I've given examples on different Twitter threads. Sorry, everyone, I can't talk right now. And they always go, oh, I think that wins you 90 games. I go, by the way, going into the season with a roster that's projected at 90 games is still a good thing, especially in the NL Central, and especially when a trade could bring you to 100 games. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to have a perfect roster of all-stars going into your season. You could have a competitive team and then make some adjustments on the fly like a lot of teams do.
And when you look at the Central, Cardinals aren't scary. You never know. Arenado was looking at this team. He might opt out. The Brewers they're never going to draw in a big market guy to there. They're going to have to make trades to be able to get like they did when they made the run back in the day with getting Prince Fielder. They're going to have to make trades.
I'm worried about Giannis, man. Giannis might be recruiting for these Brewers. Who knows? These multi bucks. But no, I agree with you. Yeah, and the Brewers, by the way, offensively are worse than the Cubs. Even when we were on our bad stretch in June, we were still ranked ahead of them. They just had really good starting pitching, and they continue to have really good starting pitching. Yeah. But again, though, if you don't supplement with offense, you're not gonna get over the top. I'll remind Cubs fans the 2015 NLCS. The whole national narrative was the Cubs built around young hitters, the Mets built around young pitching, and the Mets just swept the Cubs. I remember Joe Buck and every other national idiot being kind of like, take that, Theo Epstein. A year later, we won the World Series. The Mets got bounced in the wild card, and they haven't sniffed the playoffs since. So it kind of pitching's great. You need it. But again, say Woodruff hurts his elbow in September. They're done. And they just don't have enough bats. I remember so many Cubs fans going, we need Wong and we need Jackie Bradley Jr. I'm like, no, we do not. Where would Wong be on this team? He would have been holding back Nico Horner. He would have been in his way. And Jackie Bradley Jr. is a great defensive player, but a guy who strikes out 26% of the time. We didn't need another guy like that. I was totally happy that we
just as
didn't
good as
sign
him.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we won't take up too much of your time anymore.
Sorry, I've been talking way too much. Jeff and Kevin, I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
Don't apologize.
We have you on to be the talker.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you.
It's funny. I love it.
Can I quote that to my wife? What you just said, Mitch?
Yeah.
I'm
Go for it.
honey.
Try it out.
Mitch, just put it on Twitter because it's on Twitter. It's true.
Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Anything on Twitter is true. You have to, you interpret it as it's said.
No, this has been fun. I always enjoy. I wasn't here last time, but I have enjoyed seeing you live and getting to interact. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Kevin.
It is.
Yeah, you were at a minor league baseball game or something last time?
I can't remember. I was at my son's baseball game.
Your
Yeah.
son's baseball game.
Yeah.
He was in the
That's
hot tub
right.
with his wife.
Yes.
I remember.
Yep.
Living it up.
I believe I had it on my phone. I listened to the very tail end.
Awesome.
Well, give them where they can find you on social medias, and then we'll let you go.
Well, if you want to check out Locked On Cubs, I encourage you to. I hope you enjoy it. What's up, Adam? And if you do like Locked On Cubs, feel free to write a 5-star review. I got some bad press over the last week. Some of the reviews were hilarious, though, because you could tell they've never listened to the podcast. One called me, I'm in Tom Ricketts' pocket. I just say what he wants me to tell people. Does he want me to tell people not to? I'm literally going to organize a boycott if they don't buy any free agents in the offseason. Does he want me telling them that? I don't think he does. There's some really funny ones, though, because they were just so painfully bad. This guy's terrible. Listen to Locked On White Sox instead. Meanwhile, I'm really good friends with those guys. Also, if you're going to tell people, hey, don't listen to that Cubs podcast, listen to the other team. That seems stupid to me.
Dead giveaway.
Anyhow, also, if you like stand-up comedy, my YouTube channel, I've got like over 3 hours of stand-up comedy content there. I was called a failed comedian by some people last week, despite the fact that my YouTube channel is monetized. Also, I've got like 50,000 TikTok followers. Not a big deal, though. I'm a failed comedian. Three number one comedy albums, but, I'm a huge failure.
Well, thanks for joining us. We love listening to you. And, yeah, go check out Locked On. It's every weekday. Right?
Yeah, Monday through Friday.
Yep. So wake up, listen to some Joe, and get your mind right to handle watching these Cubs the rest of the season. So thanks for joining us, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
Joe.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, yeah, that was Joe Kilgallon. Great guy. Please go check out Locked On Cubs. I listen to that podcast almost every single day because it's so great. He's just funny. He keeps things light. He's just great. So he has a lot of good analogies, but he's great. So go check him out.
Get your morning cup of Joe from
Morning Cup of Joe.
Locked On Cubs.
That is a lot of great ideas for the future.
Yep.
I think one good point he made is everybody thinks you need to bring in a megastar, and you don't need to do that. And I hope we don't do it. I mean, some of our biggest spending was, Lester, Hayward, and then, of course, Darvish. And the only one we have left is Hayward because we can't unload him.
Yep. Well, let's update people on where we are with our dingers.
What's your experience been like here at the Cliff Godwin baseball camp?
Pretty fun. I like playing first base and third base. And, I just came here to hit dingers and have a good time.
So
That's it right there, folks.
hit dingers and have a good time. Where are we at with our dingers? Currently, Kevin is at 22. I'm at 18,
Yes.
and Jeff is slowly making a comeback with 12.
I'm not going to catch anybody.
I was getting a little bit nervous because I haven't got a dinger in like a month.
Right.
I don't think I've changed off of 18 in so long. I really could go for somebody.
What?
Come on. Does Bodie still get a chance today? Oh man, I need somebody.
Was it Friday? Was it Friday I took Ortega, or Saturday?
I can't remember.
I flipped a coin. It was between him and Chirinos.
Oh,
I
shit,
flipped-
I
I
got
You
told
you.
missed
him
out.
I would have had two. Would have had two
Yep.
that day.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
our Dingers is brought to you by Toppling Goliath. This podcast has been sponsored by Toppling Goliath, the best beer. I mean, we've been drinking it on the show. Go out and get yourself some Toppling Goliath beer. They have some amazing IPAs, and their summer line is amazing. I've had Pompey Beach lately, and the other night, my wife and I sat out, had a little campfire, and we drank this Pompey, or no, not Pompey, pineapple papaya sour. Oh, it was so good. So yeah, go check out Toppling Goliath. Of course, they have Pseudo Sue. If you're into that, great
Yeah,
IPAs.
Follow them on Twitter. They play their Where Is Sue game where they take a picture with a can of Pseudo Sue, and you got to guess where they're at. Jeff likes to guess wrong on their Twitter, but, to each their own.
Hey, I honestly thought when it was in Maine, I really
Yeah.
thought since it's like a Midwest brewery that it'd be somewhere in the Midwest. I didn't know the entire country was up for grabs.
Yeah, I think they go to 30 states. I
Yeah.
think they're distributed too.
I want to ask you guys one more question though before we end the podcast. Is so on Saturday we got to watch Chris Bryant,
Oh gosh.
Anthony Rizzo back-to-back home run. And this may be the last time we watch them hit a home run in the same game and probably back-to-back. And I think they're sitting for Cubs overall. I think they're sitting in like fourth place in back-to-back home runs.
Yeah, they've done it like 6 times.
6 times. So how sad were you guys? Like, I mean, even Rizzo's dinger today, you're like, is this the last time? I hate asking those questions. Is this the last time I'm seeing this play out? My brother was at the game on Saturday and got to witness the back-to-back dinger. So where are you guys at? Like when watching that?
I don't know. There was a short time ago we didn't have either one of these guys on the roster. And I remember Rizzo's first few seasons, he struck out a lot. It took him a while to be the player that he turned into, but we're going to fall in love with new players. We're going to find new favorites.
Right.
I mean, these guys are always going to be Cubs. It was just 6 short seasons ago that we watched them win it all, and something that, like, Mitch, your dad never saw. My dad never saw. My grandfather was 3 years old in 1908 when they won the World Series. He watched them play or listened to them on the radio throughout the teens, 20s, and 30s, and the last time in 45, never won a World Series. So they at least brought us that joy.
Yep, I totally agree. I see that stuff that pops up, and I even wrote it in the notes, kind of talking about having big feelings. Javi 3-run dinger with KB and Rizzo on the bases ahead of him, and them all waiting behind the plate and giving each other hugs when they came across and came around. And somebody was posted on Twitter like, "Is that the last time we'll see that?" And it's one of those. It could always be the last time. One of them could get hurt. That could have happened anytime. I'm just enjoying the memories that I have of them doing it and the joy that I get to see them continue playing. And I imagine I'm still going to enjoy watching them play when they're on other teams, like Schwarber when he was on his tear. I mean, we even brought him up on the podcast because he was a former Cub. He's part of that magical season. We'll still talk about him every so often. It won't necessarily be in the happiest of moments, but I totally think that there will be other players that will be just as well
Electrifying.
loved. Yeah, electrifying. That's a good phrase for it. Electrifying, and we will love them. They're coming up through the system now, but it is sad to see. But I try to just enjoy the memories as we go.
Yeah. Well, next week we'll fill you in with all the trade breaking them down. We have Brian Smith on. He is all about Cubs prospects and prospects of all baseball. So if we get any great prospects, he will fill us in with all the information that we need. And we will kind of go over memories, if it is a Bryant, Rizzo, or Baez that is traded. Kind of our fondest memories of them that we've had personally. And so it might be a hard podcast to kind of get through because it is going to be a big shift in focus next week. But I'm kind of ready for it to just get it over with. I'm ready for Friday to be here and this to be kind of behind us. And I kind of equate it like when you have a child, like it's kind of the opposite of that. It's like you're waiting in anticipation. You're just ready for it to like just come and get here. But when you're getting a child, it's exciting. This, you're like, I just want it to be done.
So it's like the ending of Old Yeller then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of know what's going to happen. And so, yeah, I'm ready for it to be over with. And maybe I'm right. Maybe my denial stage that I've circled back to will come true and they won't trade any of them and they'll sign them.
I'll tell you what,
That would be awesome.
My gut feeling is one of them's getting spared.
Yep. That's my gut feeling too.
One, but one of them's going to get spared, and the other two, I bet the last one goes on Friday, like
right at the deadline.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's going to be. I think Baez is going to stay. Well, Baez or Rizzo is going to stay. One of them. I think the Bryant trade is going to be with Kimbrel, and it's going to be right at the end, and it's going to be Jed playing teams off of each other to try to get the best deal from them. But I can see Zach Davies traded tomorrow. He will be traded before his next start, which will be
Thursday.
He's packing his bags right now.
So,
quick tease. I know Mitch has something brewing to post on Twitter and Facebook when the trade deadline is finally over, and folks will like it. It is pretty funny. We were talking about it. He showed me a little preview clip. It's gonna be good.
Yep. All right. Well, that does it for episode 50. We've reached 50. We've beat most, like 70% of podcasts that start don't make it to 50 episodes. So we're better than them. So awesome.
Let's get 100.
Let's get 100. Thanks, boys. That does it for episode 50. And thank you, Joe. Go check him out on Locked On Cubs. Like and subscribe on our podcast and on his as well. Thanks for joining us this week on the Dingers podcast.